Mystical greetings, witches and warlocks, and welcome back to Crystals, Cauldrons, and Conversations, the podcast where we talk about all things witchy, mystical, and magical, while also tying in healing, wellness, and personal growth. I'm your magical host, Kaylee, and today's episode is about something you've probably seen everywhere in pagan spaces, on jewelry, altar cloths, tattoos, books, and even social media. We're talking about symbols within paganism. Starting with our moon muse. The moon is currently in the sign of Cancer, so emotions are in their purest form during this time. It's a good time for meeting with family and friends. It's also a good time to let go and express your emotions. A great time to follow your intuitions and to enjoy the small pleasures in life. The moon is also in the waxing phase, so this is a good time to do anything that we want to be successful in. That is something that's recommended during this phase, just like last week's episode when the moon was in the waxing phase as well. So as a reminder, it's a good phase for starting any type of project or goal, and it's a good time for casting spells and doing rituals related to income, jobs, and romance. Now for our daily enchantment. Today's daily enchantment is a spell called the Eternal Flame of Love. Some supplies that you're going to potentially want are 2 red candles, rose petals, honey, a small piece of paper, a red pen, a fireproof bowl or container, and a small bottle of your favorite essential oil if you choose to use it. So find your quiet space, get your space all clean and tidy, or prepare your altar if that's what you're using. Your first step would be to actually clean the space using a few drops of the essential oil if you choose to use the essential oil. And you want to light both candles. One of them represents passion, while the other one represents love. You want to sprinkle the rose petals around the base of the candles, creating a heart shape. On the paper, you want to write both your name and your partner's name using the red ink pen. And you want to drizzle a small amount of honey over the names. This symbolizes sweetness and affection. You want to fold the paper and place it in whatever fireproof container you're using. Focus on your intentions and recite the following. Flames of passion, burning bright, seal our love both day and night. May this bond forever grow as warm and constant as the candles glow. And then, as I always add at the end, so mote it be. And then you want to gently light the paper on fire and burn it in that fireproof container, visualizing your lifelong romantic connection, and allow the candle to burn, both candles to burn until they extinguish naturally. Dispose of the ashes and the paper once they are cooled. It's usually recommended to dispose of them outdoors. But if you have no other options and it's safest for you to dispose of them in the trash, you can do that too. So some tips for this: performing this on a Friday like today enhances it. Also, pairing this with a romantic activity afterwards can strengthen the spell. And this spell should only be done if the affection is mutual and consensual between both partners or all partners. So now let's move on to symbols of paganism. So symbols are more than just a decoration. In many traditions, they actually act like spiritual shorthand. A single symbol can carry layers of meaning, history, intention, and energy. So for thousands of years, humans have used symbols to represent different ideas that are difficult to explain with just words. So if you think about it, a heart shape represents love, a peace sign represents harmony, and a cross represents faith in Christianity. I want to pause for a minute. In the middle of recording this episode, I did have to actually stop recording because I heard something outside, and it turned out to be someone in the area abusing his dog. I did make a formal report to the animal cruelty hotline, as well as calling the dog warden and the state police to take care of it. But I just wanted to pause for a minute to say, if you see something like this, please say something. One of the biggest things in paganism is respecting nature and living creatures, and dogs are part of that. Animals of all kind are part of that, and no animal deserves to live in a situation like that. So if you ever witness any kind of animal cruelty, please don't be afraid to report it. That was just something I felt very important to say. So let's get back to it. Okay. So, like I said, Different symbols have been used for a long time to represent different things that, are hard to explain with words alone. Pagan traditions are full of symbols like these, and each of them represents different energies, different beliefs, deities, or aspects of nature. So today we're just going to explore several well-known pagan symbols, where they come from, what they represent, and how people use them in modern practice. Obviously, there's a lot of different symbols within paganism, especially with all the different pathways you can follow, and it would be a lot to cover every single one of them. So I'm going to just cover a handful of them, and you can always do more research on them as you please. So let's stir this cauldron and begin. So why do symbols matter in paganism? So before we talk about specific symbols, it really does help to understand why symbols are so important in pagan spirituality. Pagan traditions tend to be nature-based and experiential, So instead of relying on only just like a written doctrine, many practices focus on connection to the earth, the seasons, energy, and your personal intuition. Symbols become tools that help represent those connections. Symbols can be used to represent protection, grounding, honoring deities, ritual focus, meditation, spell work, and even personal identity. Symbols are powerful because they work on both the conscious and subconscious mind. So when you repeatedly associate a symbol with a meaning or intention, your brain begins to link the two automatically. Okay, let me say that again. When you repeatedly associate a symbol with a meaning or intention, your brain begins to link the two automatically. Just like when you see a heart, your brain thinks love. When you see a peace sign, your brain thinks of peace and harmony, because those things have been associated with those for so long that now we just kind of automatically link them together. So that's one reason why you'll see people wear symbols as jewelry or like place them on their altars. They act as just constant reminders of spiritual beliefs and intentions. So now let's explore some of the most recognized ones. So one of probably the biggest recognized ones is going to be the pentacle and the pentagram. It's one of the most well-known symbols in paganism. So the pentacle, which is a 5-pointed star, often enclosed in a circle. The star itself is called a pentagram. In many pagan traditions, the 5 points represent the 5 elements. So that would be earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. The circle around the star represents unity, protection, and the connection between all the elements. So, despite popular myths, which I know I've mentioned before, or, different horror movie portrayals, the pentagram or the pentacle is not a symbol of evil. In fact, historically, it has been used as a symbol of protection and balance. In modern pagan traditions, particularly Wicca, the pentacle is often used during rituals. It's placed on altars or worn as jewelry. Many practitioners see it as a symbol of harmony between the physical world and spiritual energy. So for me, I have a pentagram or a pentacle necklace that I wear. It's the 5-pointed star enclosed in a circle. It's a necklace that I wear every day, and I have for many years. I have pentagrams on my altar. I have a specific necklace that I made full of pentagram charms that I wear during spells. I have one hanging in my car for protection when I'm driving or any of my family are using the car in the car. And then I have one hanging right next to my door to help ward off any negativity that could try to enter my home. So I have them quite literally everywhere. So I often call them pentagrams, the ones that I have, but they're actually pentacles, because once you enclose them in the circle, that's when they become a pentacle. If it's just the 5-pointed star, then it's just a pentagram. But yes, I do have them pretty much everywhere. It's like probably my favorite symbol, one of my favorite symbols. So the next symbol we're going to talk about is the triple moon. So the triple moon, it's another very beautiful symbol that you may have seen. This symbol usually features a waxing crescent moon on one side, a full moon in the middle, and then a waning crescent moon on the other side. So together, these represent the 3 phases of the goddess, often described as the maiden, the mother, and the crone, which if you listened to the episode that I talked about the pathways of paganism, I did talk about the triple goddess and the maiden, mother, and the crone. So these phases also correspond with the cycles of the moon and the stages of life. The waxing moon represents the beginnings and growth, so that would be the maiden. The full moon represents power, abundance, and fullness, the mother. And then the waning moon represents wisdom, reflection, and transformation, and that would be the crone. So for many practitioners, the triple moon symbolizes feminine energy, intuition, and the natural cycles of life and nature. So next we're going to talk about the triskelion. So the triskelion, sometimes called the triple spiral, it's a symbol with 3 spirals radiating from like a center point. So like there's like a center point and then 3 spirals coming off of it. So this symbol is strongly connected to ancient Celtic cultures. And the number 3 was considered sacred in many pagan traditions. If you listen to my one episode I did about embracing Friday the 13th, I talked a little bit about how 3 and 13 are all sacred numbers and lucky numbers. And then if you listened to the episode about the pathways, I talked about the threefold law, which is where everything that you give out to the universe comes back to you 3 times over. So yeah, the number 3 is considered sacred in a lot of pagan traditions, and the triple spiral can represent different sets of 3, such as life, death, and rebirth, or land, sea, and sky, and also past, present, and future. So spirals themselves often represent growth, movement, and then spiritual evolution, and because of that, the triskelion can symbolize the ongoing journey of the soul and the constant cycles of change and life. So that's the triskelion. The tree of life is another one that I have. I have a tree of life symbol with chakra crystals hanging down from it. I keep that hanging at my altar, or where I keep it hanging at the place where I set my altar up, because I tend to I set my altar up based on what kind of spell I'm doing, and then I take it down and I put my stuff away. But I do have a cloth hanging on my wall. That's the wheel of the year. And it's got some crystals hanging around it, my pentacle hanging on it, and my necklace full of pentacles, and then my chakra symbol. But at the top of my chakra crystals have the tree of life. So the tree of life is a symbol that appears in many spiritual traditions, but it does hold special meaning in pagan and nature-based practices. The image typically shows a tree with very deep roots and a strong trunk. Sometimes it kind of looks like the trunk is like twisting in a way. And then it's got these like big, wide reaching branches. And each part of that actually represents a different connection. So the roots symbolize grounding and connection to the earth. The trunk represents strength and stability. And the branches symbolize growth, wisdom, and connection to the heavens. So many pagans see the tree of life as a symbol of the interconnectedness of all living things. Everything in nature is a part of the same web of life. So another one I want to bring up is the sun wheel. I don't know if you've ever heard of this one, but it's very meaningful. It's called the sun wheel. It's also known as the solar cross. So this symbol is a circle with a cross inside, and it carries deep connections to nature and the passage of time. So it's got 4 sections of the cross represent the 4 seasons. So each one represents spring, summer, fall, and winter. And the circle surrounding it represents the continuous cycle of the year, reminding us that life is always moving, always changing, and always renewing itself. So this symbol this symbol is especially meaningful in pagan traditions because it reflects the same idea as the Wheel of the Year. So if you listen to the episode on the Wheel of the Year, you learned all about that, and that's the cycle of Sabbats and the natural rhythms of the earth. So it also represents balance between light and dark, growth and rest, action and reflection, which, again, when we talked about the Sabbats, there was a Sabbat each for celebrating light and shadow, action, growth, rest, and reflection. So the two do connect, the Wheel of the Year and the sun wheel. You might use this symbol as a reminder to stay grounded in the natural cycles of life rather than resisting the change, because change is always coming, is always happening, always going to happen. So using this can kind of help you stay grounded when those changes are happening rather than trying to resist them. So then there's the evil eye. So the evil eye is that blue circle that has like a pupil in it, so it looks like an eyeball. It may sound like a bad thing because it's called the evil eye, but it's not. The evil eye is actually a symbol that's recognized across many cultures and is often used for protection. It's typically shown as a blue eye shaped symbol and is believed to ward off negative energy, especially energy that is sent through jealousy, envy, or ill intentions. So having an evil eye symbol with you or in your house would be a great thing for warding off those negative energies. I actually do not have an evil eye symbol now that I think about it. So I think that is something I definitely want to get. I'm going to make myself a note. Get one, get an evil eye symbol. So the idea behind the evil eye is that sometimes negativity can be directed towards us intentionally or even unintentionally, and this symbol acts as a kind of spiritual shield. Many people do wear the evil eye as jewelry, or place it in their homes or carry it with them for protection. And it's not really, even though it looks like an eyeball, it's not like a creepy looking symbol if you ask me. And even though it's not exclusive to one specific pagan tradition, it is widely used in spiritual practices because of its very strong association with protection and energy boundaries. So it serves as a reminder that just like we protect our physical space, we can also protect our energy and our emotional well-being, especially using this symbol. So talking about protection symbols, many pagan symbols are also used for protection. There's quite a few that are used for protection. Some of the most common protective symbols, like I mentioned, the pentacle and the evil eye, but there's also runes, which we will dive pretty deep into in a future episode, all about runes. And then there's protective sigils. So people may place protective symbols on doors, windows, jewelry, or their altar spaces. The idea is that the symbols can almost act like energetic shields, helping to set spiritual boundaries and intentions. So let's talk a little bit more about protective sigils. So another powerful form of symbolism in pagan and spiritual practices is the use of sigils, especially protective ones. A sigil is a personal symbol created to represent a specific intention. So unlike traditional symbols that have, their established meanings and have been around for a very long time, sigils are often unique to the person who creates them. So it's basically like creating your own symbol. So it makes them especially powerful and personal, especially based on the intention that you put behind it when creating it. Protective sigils are designed with one goal in mind, and that is to protect your energy, protect your space, or protect your well-being, or all three. They can be used for things like warding off negative energy, creating emotional or spiritual boundaries, or bringing a sense of safety and grounding into your home, into your life, that sort of thing. So the process of creating a sigil is actually really simple. It usually just starts with a clear intention, such as, I am protected, or my energy is safe. So from there, you just take that intention and you turn it into a symbol. And often by removing vowels, combining letters, or intuitively drawing shapes that feel right to you. So basically you just kind of let whatever resonates with you happen, and that can be your protective sigil. So their final design becomes kind of a visual representation of your intention. So once created, many people will activate them or charge their sigil by focusing on it during a meditation, visualizing their intention, or incorporating it into a small ritual. So protective sigils can be used in everyday life in really simple ways. You might draw one on paper and keep it in your wallet, place one near your door or your window, include one in your journal or your planner, or visualize one around yourself like a shield. So what makes sigils so powerful is that they combine intention, creativity, and focus. So they're a reminder that protection doesn't always have to come from something external. Sometimes it's something we create and strengthen within ourselves. So let's talk a little bit about cultural respect and learning. One thing that's important to mention when discussing symbols is cultural respect. Some symbols come from specific traditions or cultures and may carry deep historical significance. When exploring pagan symbols, it's always a good idea to learn where they come from and what they mean before using them. Spiritual exploration is wonderful, but understanding context really helps to honor the cultures that preserve these symbols through history. You know, symbols are like tiny containers of meaning. A single image can hold centuries of tradition, spiritual ideas, and personal connection. Whether someone connects with the pentacle, the triple moon, the tree of life, or a symbol they create themselves, what matters most is the intention and respect behind it. Symbols remind us that spirituality doesn't always need long explanations. Sometimes a simple shape carved into wood, drawn on paper, or worn around your neck can represent an entire belief system. So that's all for today's episode of Crystals, Cauldrons, and Conversations. Next time you see a symbol in a pagan space, take a moment to wonder about the story behind it. You might discover that it holds far more meaning than it first appears. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave your feedback in the comments. I'd also love to hear about your experiences as far as symbols go. If you've ever created your own sigil or you would like to, I'd love to hear about it. And I'd love to answer any of your questions, so feel free to leave those in the comment section. Also, leave a rating on the podcast. If you would take a minute to do so, it can help other people to find the podcast. Don't forget to share, follow, and subscribe. It really helps me out, and I really appreciate every time you do. Check out the show notes for a recap on today's daily enchantment. It's all listed in there step by step for you if that's something you'd like to give a try. And come sit around the cauldron with me next week when we talk about our second conversation episode, and we are getting into mindfulness and how to bring mindfulness into your daily life. I'll be waiting to welcome you to the coven, and as always, stay magical.